This is Keys to the Shop, episode 432, How to Win in Specialty Retail Coffee. Well, hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of Keys to the Shop, where we give you insights, inspiration, and the tools you need to grow as a coffee service professional. My name is Chris DeFirio. I'm your host for the show, and I am really excited to have you along today. Please go ahead and subscribe to Keys to the Shop. That'll keep you updated with all the new episodes coming out every month. And also, do me a huge favor, if you have the opportunity, give this show a 5-star rating or review on Apple Podcasts and as well as Spotify. And share these episodes when you find value in the content and you know that these topics that we discuss with guests or solo episodes like today are really hitting the mark and more people need to hear this, then just share it on social media, send it as an email, and just make people aware of Keys to the Shop in the community that you are connected with, and that makes a huge difference. So thank you very much for doing that. Now, Keys to the Shop is not just a podcast, but also a consulting and coaching company. So Keys to the Shop Consulting and Coaching is where I get to work directly with you one-on-one to help you with the operations, people, and quality of your coffee shop, whether that's your existing shop, where we do cafe assessments and coaching and walk you through the process of refinement of those things. Or you're just starting out in the industry and need some guidance and an advisor along the way to help you avoid needless mistakes on the path to building your dream coffee shop. I've worked with many people over the years on both sides of the coin there, and I would love to have a conversation about what it looks like to work with you. So go ahead and email chris@keystotheshop.com. That's CHRIS@keystotheshop.com. We'll set up a free discovery call. You can also reach out on Instagram @keystotheshop. Just DM me. We'll have a conversation, and maybe working with Keys to the Shop is the right choice for you. Just got back from a really great cafe assessment with a client of mine, and I've done a few this year, and I'll tell you, it's just really transformational, really powerful. The coaching sessions are custom for your situation to bring you fulfillment solutions and the next level of operations for your cafe. Again, that email for Keys to the Shop Consulting, chris@keystotheshop.com. So in the conversation that we're going to have in this episode today is the topic of differentiation in some ways. It's something that the ground control Cyclops brewer from Voga Coffee is known for offering to its customers because there is a noticeable difference in the taste of the coffee from this machine because it uses SCA award-winning technology that allows you to access a depth and flavor in your coffee that other coffee brewing equipment just cannot access. The ground control Cyclops brewer's extraction technology also allows it to make tea, batched iced lattes, batch cold brew. So this opens up revenue streams, more profitability, better efficiency, and better coffee. So go ahead and visit them over at groundcontrol.coffee. Find out more about this amazing piece of equipment. So if you're looking for an upgrade in the efficiency of your coffee brewing and the quality of the coffee you're putting out, then I would encourage you to check out the Ground Control Cyclops brewer over at groundcontrol.coffee. Dependability, stability, and quality. These are things we love to hear when it comes to products that we're serving our customers. That's why I like the Barista series from Pacific, our sponsor today on the episode. The Barista series was designed for baristas, professional baristas, and it's approved by baristas all over the world. So you know that it stands up to the heat from steaming, produces awesome texture, keeps the balance focused on the coffee in terms of flavor. So this product, this performance beverage, truly does perform no matter what of their extensive lineup of plant-based beverages you are choosing from. Check them out at pacificfoodservice.com, get samples, and try it at your cafe. Make some lattes, make some cappuccinos, and taste the difference, see the performance difference. I think you're really going to be impressed. If you're looking for the best plant-based beverages for your guests, then I think it has to be the Barista series from Pacific. All right, everybody. Well, today we're going to be talking about winning in retail, how to win in specialty retail coffee. Of course, there are probably 175 different things that we could talk about. And today we're really only going to be talking about 5 things. But in these 5 areas, I believe, is going to be the difference between if your cafe just stands out or doesn't stand out, or is successful and is not successful. And the reason why I say this is because we do have a lot of things to focus on in the retail space. In fact, I have episodes that we'll link to in the show notes discussing other areas that I believe are key. So rather than saying these are the only 5 things that you need to focus on, consider these one of the sets of main topics that I think are going to contribute to your success in your retail cafe. And the reason why we're talking about this today is because there is change happening in retail coffee. Over the course of many, many years, the landscape of operations in specialty coffee has changed, and it's changed mostly for the better. When I say for the better, I mean that there's more consistent equipment, there's more consistent quality of coffee, and there are more coffee shops. And that's, a good thing in some ways, and it's a bad thing in another way. And it's a good thing because now people are really familiar with coffee, more so than they ever have been in the past. But at the same time, with more coffee out there, that means there's more bad coffee. More, I say bad, maybe in air quotes, if you will. There is a philosophy that every coffee has a home, but there is a such thing as quality out there, and sometimes a coffee that has defects and things like that. Objectively, some things just taste bad. Now, how often does that happen? Maybe not as often as some of us in specialty like to think, because we consider ourselves pretty special. But really, I'm talking about experiences that people have, and bad coffee and bad experiences that people have in retail is one of the main reasons why we face an uphill battle in coffee shops, because people come into the coffee shop and they've been hurt by coffee in the past. They have either made it in their home and they didn't like it, or they've gone to a coffee shop and got an attitude, or dysfunctional operations, or bad service, and the quality of the coffee was less than it could be, or it's just wildly inconsistent. All of that is built up layer by layer in the mind of the customer over years. And then when some hotshot opens up a coffee bar with a great vision statement and a lot of funding, they're like, okay, yeah, let's see about this. And they go in, and even if they're not explicitly thinking that they're just going to judge this according to their past experiences, as human beings, this is what we do. We are comparison engines. We'll predict. And so the struggle is long term. How do we simultaneously fight the bad experiences that people have had, or disappointing experiences, and also build new expectations? And that has to do with long-term consistency of habit and actions in the shop. Of course, this is based on values that you put into action in the shop, where, as Bruce Tulgan says in his book, It's Okay to Be the Boss, you have to talk about work at work. A lot of us in coffee don't talk about work at work. We do the work, but we talk about everything else. And then we wonder why work isn't getting done. It's not like we only talk about work at work, but we have to actually discuss the basis for why we are gathered here, clocking in and working. And that is cleaning and hospitality experiences, and keeping one another accountable and motivating one another according to a set of goals. And those goals are in the form of values. So if you have 5 or 6 values that guide your operations, your first thing is to figure out how to define those in such a way that I, as a barista, can look back on my day and say, yes, I have accomplished values. Those are now actions that I have taken that I can verify I have contributed positively to the coffee shop according to how we have defined success in these values being lived out. So that's the precursor here. We have to base everything on that. And if we don't have that, then we're going to be in for a world of hurt, in my opinion. So I want to talk about 5 things that I believe are going to be key for you. And these are going to help you stand out, but not only stand out, but stand strong in the midst of a new era of specialty retail coffee, where even some of the most mundane retail experiences out there that aren't coffee related have coffee bar concepts mixed into them, and people at home are making great coffee sometimes, and a lot of times actually way better than what they can get in a coffee shop. So the first thing that I want to talk about is hospitality as a priority. So hospitality is the priority here in our differentiation, and that is going to create loyalty or a draw that people will have to your coffee shop, because hospitality, as much as we talk about it, we don't live it as much as we talk about it. We assume that we're doing hospitality a lot, right? But again, without verification of, or defining what that means, what does hospitality actually look like? It's hard to say that we're actually doing it. And we're going to give ourselves the benefit of the doubt and say, yeah, of course we're doing it. We're providing great coffee with pleasant service, and that's fine, and that's well and good. But I want you to get more explicit with the definition of what this means. The key difference between you and other people is going to be the level of experience you give the customer. And our guests in the coffee shop are tuned in to how people are making them feel, how this exchange has either shamed them or hurted them like cattle, or it hasn't made a really great impression on them. Have they connected? Like our guest Will Guidera of Unreasonable Hospitality talks about. Yeah, it's a fast-paced environment, but if there's a moment where we're connecting, where this is about you and them, that moment makes a huge difference. I've experienced that many times in coffee shops. And we have to be people who dial in that experience. I am eagle-eyed on the espresso. I want the espresso to be great. No matter if I'm making a mocha or a cortado or a single shot of espresso, it doesn't matter. If I am a great barista, if I consider myself a professional and I am not paying attention to my espresso, and I'm just saying, it's good enough, let's just get it through. I'm not dialing in my grinder as I go and doing all of the detail work, then I don't think I can consider myself a professional. I'm just existing with a title. Okay, so with hospitality, it's the same thing. We have to dial ourselves in. And as owners and operators listening to this today, it's your responsibility to give people enough margin mentally, emotionally, and physically to be able to do those things. If people are so stressed and overworked and understaffed and all this stuff, truly, they're not going to be able to have the bandwidth to perform the dial-in of hospitality necessary to fulfill the promise that your specialty shop makes to the customer, that this really will be a special experience for them. And it's just sad trombone every time people walk into the cafe and they get this specialty drink. It's like those videos of people comparing what they get from Burger King to what's on the menu. It's just accepted in coffee. And the people who make the biggest impression are the ones who figure out how to get rid of that incongruity. And if you are going to invest in anything, it's not only in the quality of your coffee. We always want that. Again, Will Guidera talks about being excellent as table stakes. That's how you get into the game, but how you make people feel and what you do with now this platform that you have built. And people are coming to say, hey, show us what you've got. And they're not ordering from the menu. Yeah, I'd like a cappuccino to go with a smile and some connection, please. That's not on the menu, but it's an off-menu item that is kind of assumed. And if you embrace that, you will not only survive downturns in the economy, you will stand a way better chance of having a loyal base of customers and fans because of this. And that will help you when things like the economy takes a downturn. Like the people that were most supported during the pandemic were people who had made those connections over time, and people felt in their hearts they need this place. Why? Because they're addicted to caffeine? No, because of the relationships. And that is a priority. It has to be a planned focus and priority. So Focus on serving genuinely and dialing in your customer experience every day. And this is going to help you win in specialty coffee retail. Now, I mentioned the promise that we make in specialty coffee, okay? The promise we make by just virtue of the fact that we're serving these types of drinks, we call ourselves specialty coffee, is huge. But really, today, it's based on digital identity. Okay, so in order to attract customers to your cafe, you have to go out there. And part of that is social media, your Instagram accounts, and other things. Your digital identity is your shop. It exists in reality, yes, as a brick and mortar or as a cart in a place where you serve coffee. But first, for a lot of people, it exists only in images, in words. And this is huge. And this is something that too many people just let languish in this purgatorial gray area where now they don't even know if you're open, because the last post was like 6 days ago. And it was a post that said, here's our hours for, Secretary's Day or something like that. And so they don't even know what's going on. Are you still open? That's the new open sign. When people walk by your cafe and they see open, oh, I'm going to go in and get a coffee. People go by your social media and they don't see a vibrant, active, within that day or number of hours, they're going to assume something is wrong or it's just like gone, or I don't know. It's not 100% the case that they're going to say, well, I'm just not going to go, because plenty of your customers, of course, don't check Instagram before they come to your cafe. But there is an impression that you make with your social media that will attract people to you, and it has to be part of the life of your business, an extension of your business to customers that I won't say lures them in, because lure means it's almost like we're going to bait and switch. So we don't want to do that, but we want to represent the true life of the business and what we do in the business in the Instagram. There is a chance that you will do a bait and switch. The reason why is because it's much easier for us in a vacuum of serving customers and pressure to put filters on, get professional photography done, just to take pictures and present a front to the customer in social media that doesn't line up with the experience that they're going to have in the cafe. So when we promise people things, a lot of times this has to do with what we're putting on social media. And, one of my clients toured so many coffee shops before they opened their coffee place themselves. And we were talking about this, and they said this happened to them so much. The reputation based on photos and Instagram accounts was so strong. And then they go in there, and again, it just was this letdown. It was this, I don't know. So you have to line up your digital identity with what you're actually delivering in your coffee shop, or else you're going to give people this kind of ennui, if you will, about specialty coffee. It's just always going to be this constant buzz of disappointment and a down feeling. And we're going to wonder why, it feels so much better to be on their Instagram page than it does to be in the actual cafe. So you really do, first of all, need to focus on that this is the first place where people form an impression of who we are. So you want to make a great impression. But then you need to take that digital identity and say, look, these are the predicted impressions that people are going to have about our space. If it's clean, if the cup is filled up with great latte art and it's vibrant and there are smiling, happy baristas all over your Instagram account, and people walk in and there's underfilled lattes, it's dirty and nobody is smiling, I mean, that is basically the common experience. So digital identity not only builds up the customer, but it needs to motivate us. If you're going to do that, do it. Be about it. But don't put it out there as if that's actually what's happening in your coffee shop unless you are committed to actually making it true. You have to take this digital identity seriously and not only live up to the expectations, but when you put out your messages, one of the things that will keep people from actually even embracing social media is that they don't know what to post. And the first thing that I would say is look back to your values. Talk about what your values are and what pictures can line up with your values. And talk about your values. Talk about the things that you are involved with in the community and how you're living out your values through your product, your place, and your people. It doesn't need to be as curated as a lot of places would lead you to believe, okay? It just needs to be consistent. And your experience then needs to line up with the expectation that you are putting out there and marketing to people. One of the things that happens to our minds as operators, if we are used to making a promise and not delivering, is we're betraying ourselves. And if we're used to betraying ourselves and not following through on expectations given, then first of all, it's hard to have an argument that says, well, I have an expectation that people will follow through myself, that'll work for me. And then it's going to be easier for us to let ourselves off the hook in other areas that are not in alignment with what we know is right and good in our shop. We're practicing a bit of cognitive dissonance, and the customer gets the receiving end of that. So this whole conversation around digital identity is huge, and I think it's something you also need to embrace to succeed in specialty coffee retail. Now, I want to talk about accessibility. Now, we maybe have gone a little bit too far into the accessibility category of things. First of all, the specialty stuff like frozen balls of coffee and whatnot, and we talk about accessibility in some ways regarding that. Accessible to who, first of all? Coffee can be made on coffee makers, and coffee makers are available to people. And we have, by virtue of our marketing genius, told people that coffee makers are insufficient. We have to overcomplicate it. We have to cryogenically manufacture coffee experiences for people. Now, I beg somebody to tell me how this increases accessibility at all. So there's this comical far end of the conversation to me that shows that there's excessive accessibility. Okay, so at the same time, these convenience products like ready-to-drink products, etc., but then in the middle, there are things where, I know there's a place for making coffee in hotel rooms and specialty coffee versions of, places that would never invest in like a high-end specialty experience for guests. And so I welcome accessibility to, exposure to brands of coffee that people wouldn't normally experience in a hotel room if they're using a pod or a capsule of some kind. There is a whole ecological conversation to have that we're not going to have right now around this that I find a lot of tension in. But I will say that the proliferation of bottled coffees, the ready-to-drink category of cold brews and lattes and all that kind of stuff, along with capsules, pods, frozen balls, and stuff like that, is, to me, the market yearning for access to specialty coffee in some way that is easier than going into a coffee shop. And the question is, why? Why is it? And I go back to, and I will stake, I don't know, I'm not going to die on this hill necessarily because I want to be open to be proven wrong here, but I think it's the same reason why we had so many condiments and syrups and so many places to have like 67 syrups on a wall in their coffee shop, half of which don't get used. A lot of this has come from people having bad coffee experiences, and bad coffee needs to be covered up with something. This is like in Italy, they put sugar in their espresso. Why? Because otherwise it's not that palatable on the whole. It doesn't mean that it's bad, quote unquote, again, back to, who gets to define things here, but it is a defense mechanism. A lot of convenience products are defense mechanisms against a gamble that people have lost by going to coffee shops and saying, gosh, it's just not worth going. I want to stay home. And now guess what? They are. And so the coffee shop, instead of being a place that welcomes people and makes coffee for people and they walk away happy, is a place where people might pick up a bottle of coffee and try to minimize their engagement with retail. Now we're talking about success in retail specialty coffee, okay? A coffee shop. That's what this whole show is about, is coffee shops. Now, you may run a company that is making a ton of money from bottled beverages and capsules and things like that, and more power to you, okay? I hope that is, helping people get exposed to specialty coffee, but I want to champion the idea that some of this is because the specialty retail experience that people walk into a shop and interact with is less than ideal and is not providing a source of value that goes beyond just the cup. And if we've stripped the experience of all of its value and just put it down to its sheer delivery of caffeine in a hot or cold beverage, then of course the market is going to respond and say, I don't even need these baristas. We don't even need the coffee shop. We just need you to pump out coffee because that's what you were doing anyway. And we kind of wanted to have a brief chat. We kind of wanted to have a human moment, but guess you don't want to. So now look at where we are. Okay. So I think a lot of this accessibility conversation, or at least the convenience conversation, has to do with failures that we have perpetrated on the public in our coffee shops. We have the opportunity to differentiate ourselves and to invest back into that. Brick and mortar is not dead, okay? As much as that conversation was huge during the pandemic, it is an opportunity. In the sea of convenience, there is room for things that are not as quote unquote convenient, because people will go out of their way, which is by definition inconvenient, if they know that there's more value to be had, something deeper than just swigging down a bottle of coffee, where the brand just becomes a ubiquitous presence as an empty cup or a wrapper or something in their console of their car. Is that what we want to be reduced down to? There is value in spreading coffee all around. More people drinking coffee means more coffee being bought, which means farmers get hopefully a better situation depending on how we handle things. But I will tell you that people's impression of specialty coffee is going to be more likely finessed and sealed when it comes to service interactions face-to-face with people representing specialty coffee versus brands and labels representing specialty coffee. There are people behind this, and it's weird how we have, again, I'll use the word cognitive dissonance. We talk about the story behind coffee, the people behind coffee on the back end, on the farming end, but we don't apparently value the people on the front end making the coffee enough to fortify their jobs with meaning through our operations, through how we provide hospitality and deliver value, So let me jump off that soapbox a little bit and talk about some practical things with accessibility. What does accessibility actually look like in your coffee shop? Well, I think we need to increase people's access to enjoyable coffees. It's not the game anymore to try to create experiences for people that shock them and shock their palates. We're not out to shock people's palates. I didn't know specialty coffee could taste like fill in the blank. That's a cool trick. I didn't know this specialty coffee could taste like a bologna sandwich. Who cares if it can taste like something else? People want it to taste good. That's the thing. So if we have these tricks where we can make coffee taste like all these other things, that's fun, that's fine. But that's not the meat and potatoes. And some of your coffee might taste like meat and potatoes. That will keep the industry going forward. Accessible flavors are the quintessential coffee flavors. And there's some of the things that we actually are a little bit chagrined at, like if you look at your coffee bar, what's the number one seller for most of you out there? If you're really honest, if you're doing this, darker roasted coffees, flavored lattes. Okay. Yeah. This is what people want. And we try our hardest to not admit it. And we keep on basically doing an air five with our customers. We're trying to say, yeah, we're going to serve you. And it just whiffs right by with this process or that process or some specialty drink that's like $75 and it comes only in a 4-ounce cup and you can't take it to go. And we're like, oh, geez, why do people think that we're inaccessible? Okay, well, are we specializing our attention? Are we focusing our attention on the things that people love? What do your customers love? What is your version of actually fulfilling that desire that they have? How can we get over ourselves and provide more developed coffees that are delicious and provide a little bit larger flavored coffees that have, that maybe they have syrup in it. But I'll tell you, as a former competitor in USBC, and you see all these signature beverages, all the stuff that they're putting into the coffee to create a flavor experience really is not that much different than a mocha. Okay. And back in my day and earlier, there was basically mochas being made for specialty drinks, and we're just so pretentious in some ways. We are thinking, well, it's not a mocha if I tell them that I'm using an eyedropper to put in a little bit of a reduction of a clarified cacao. Then I'm going to put in a little bit of this other ingredient and a exotically sourced product here and there. And it's different than me pumping vanilla in there. Ugh, that's how Philistine of them, right? No, that's just you trying to find justification for flavor in coffee. That's what that is. And so you can't turn your nose up at pumpkin spice lattes and vanilla lattes if you're going to sit there and add 5 different ingredients and 2 garnishes to your specialty drink. They're both adding flavor to the beverage. And it's time we got over this idea that certain drinks don't deserve our attention. We need to make everything with as much excellence as possible. That doesn't mean you need to like it. It doesn't mean you need to drink it. It does not mean you need to drink it every day. But it means that you have to have enough respect for your customers to make it excellent every day, and to maybe expand your menu to make things that people are really craving, even if you want one day for them to get into coffee that is a little bit more coffee flavored. Even that, I question. I'm like, why? Why do you want that? If they love you and they always get a vanilla latte, and yet you're dissatisfied with their level of sophistication because they can't appreciate that Kenya single origin espresso, then you're the problem. Sorry. I've lived it. I totally have thought that. I'm like, it's my mission. This guy's getting this drink and this drink sucks, and I'm going to make them a true coffee connoisseur. Okay. But is this really what's going to push the industry forward? I don't really think so. That's the inaccessibility that has created the convenience market, where people can unashamedly, in the privacy of their own vehicle, drink a drink that brings them joy. And we have ruined that for them in the coffee shop because we have so much judgment and reaction to that. And I have contributed that myself over the years, for sure. And here's me on a podcast trying to, do penance for my sins. And anyway, it's a little overstated. But here's the thing. Here's the point on accessibility. Create inroads to your customer base that aligns with what you value in your business, but also serves their needs, brings them joy. How much joy can you find in somebody else's joy? That's a good question to ask, especially on the service and the menu that you're providing your customers. So next thing I want to talk about here is customer education. Now, we mentioned that people are making coffee at home very often. And I, for one, I make a great espresso at home. I use like a 2nd generation Flair espresso machine, and it's manual. It takes some doing, and it's a good machine. And I am still making better espresso than I can find in most coffee shops because of the, attention to detail that I can give each shot. And I mean, that's really saying something, but we're selling roasted coffee to our customers. And for a lot of retailers, when you're selling this bag, that's a high margin item that helps not only create another means of income for you, a stream of income that for many during the pandemic actually kept them open, but it helps set the expectation for, and keep you accountable for excellence within your own cafe. When people still, even though they bought coffee from you, they will come in to your coffee shop. There's a difference between buying a bag of coffee as a way of escaping the coffee shop and buying a bag of coffee because the coffee you got in the shop was so good. See the difference there? Now, customer education has to be done with the idea that customers today are more well-traveled and educated on coffee than they ever have been before. Trade coffee and subscriptions like it that have been around for a while have exposed people to roasters from far-flung areas that really gives them a sense of what's possible with coffee. And we have to be aware of that. Customer education used to be more about fascinating and wowing them, and really our own validation to say, see, isn't this a serious profession? Now, customer education is about equipping them for success, to be successful with your coffee at home. Oh, you love that coffee? Well, there's a bag. There's a bag right here. Here's how you can make it at home. We include how to brew or suggested recipes for brewing coffee that are not like, oh, first you have to go out and buy a $300 grinder and a $500 espresso machine or a brewer, and then you have to genuflex in front of it 7 times. There's a lot of complications that a customer will interpret because they've been on YouTube and they see all of the home espresso machine and grinder comparisons and lineups, and it's just overwhelming. It's overwhelming. So we can set them up for success by clarifying how they can be successful. That's up to us to actually do the R&D on that. What do most of our customers use for brewing? Maybe you could do a survey of your customers online and say, hey, we want to help you make great coffee at home. How do you make coffee at home? Let's find out. How many customers do you think you have? Do you have 1,000 customers, 2,000, less? Even at higher numbers, you can still get 50% or above in terms of participation in the survey. That will be representative of a majority of them. If it's all Mr. Coffee and you're talking about brewing the coffee in a different manner at home, well, you're forcing them to buy more equipment. They're probably not going to do it. But how can they be successful with a Mr. Coffee? And then, do you even have the equipment in your roastery, in your lab, if you will, that your customers use? Have you tried it? For many of us, and I will say I've never seen a Mr. Coffee in a coffee lab to say, well, how will a customer experience this? So real world customer experience section of your coffee bench would be ideal, right? Because now we know how the customer will more likely experience this. What does our coffee taste like with non-filtered water on a non-ideal espresso machine? And if you're using that, what are some of the ways that we can meet you where you are and show you how to be successful with our coffee? That's customer education. Yes, you can talk to them all about the story of coffee and about microbes and about ecology and equity and all this stuff that we have conversations about in the industry. But the customer's job is not necessarily to, again, validate our existence. All those conversations that we have are things that should be holding us accountable for responsible supply chains and quality assurance. We want customers to love coffee and buy it often and drink it with joy. And that's what customer education needs to be about. So that, to me, is going to make you successful because you're making them successful in brewing coffee that they love, that you love. What's not to love, right? So that's my suggestion to you on customer education. And now I'm going to talk about the last thing here. And honestly, this might be one of the most important of everything that we've talked about today. And it is leadership reform. Reforming leadership. What does it look like to be a leader in specialty coffee? Whether you are the trainer, assistant manager, owner, general manager, it doesn't matter. We talked on the show before about how there is a culture amongst leaders that needs to be focused on and have almost its own set of values. Those are in service to the greater experience and how leadership impacts everything that comes downstream of it. And if you have all the right stuff, all the right marketing, everything that a little coffee professional could ever want, but you don't have good leadership, it all falls apart. The emotional capacity of professionals cannot be understated in terms of importance. This is the key to the shop, if you will. Okay? So the shop itself, if you have a key to the shop is already there. But you can't get in and use it unless you've got the key. The key is the stuff that you can't see, the stuff that holds it together. It connects it all. It's the relationships. It's the unspoken expectations. It's the buildup of trust or the buildup of bitterness. And a lot of that boils down to leadership. We assume ourselves and others into positions of power that create toxic work cultures. We don't take into consideration the power difference between us and the people we lead. And we operate with ignorance in terms of how much of an impact our presence makes when we have the title of leader. When we go down through the cafe, we leave a wake behind us as we go. And that rippling effect is going to either be positive or negative, depending on how we plan our presence and accept our role to use our power and authority as a service to other people, as a conduit to fuel other people. It is not for you. Your power is not for you. It is for others. It is a noble and scary, maybe fearful task to be a leader. It is not something we use to bludgeon people into line. But most of the time when I go into a place, when I go and do a cafe assessment, or if I do coaching and the consulting relationships I have with people, it's not just about tips and tricks and equipment that you need and a perfect checklist and that kind of thing. We need to get deep. And oftentimes it has to do with the approach. How many times that I've actually talked with people about being passive aggressive? And that's one of the benefits of being a consultant in a lot of ways, is that I'm not actually an employee. I don't have that fear necessarily of approaching something with my boss because they're worried about their hourly job. They don't want to bring it up. But when we have honest and frank conversations about how people are being perceived in the workplace, and about things that are actually destructive, self-destructive. I have done this myself. I have been inaccessible as a manager and caused people a lot of hurt because they didn't think they could communicate with me. I was their boss and they just didn't think they could. I was unaware or just didn't want to admit that I was putting something out there that was actually causing harm to other people. And years of just getting older and accepting this have shown me that I am a work in progress. And as your company and your business grows, so are you. I mean, if you've been the owner, you're the longest running employee. But if you have not changed and you're not open to change yourself as your business changes, then it's a mismatch. I almost guarantee it's a mismatch. If there isn't intentional reformation over a consistent period of time, like let's look at how I need to be as a leader. Let's look at who I need to be in this business as it exists now, with all of these locations, with all of these services, with this unique group of people in this moment, in this unique group of customers. That is the conversation that we need to have all the time. And so rather than creating a toxic work culture, this keeps things fresh, because we can't underestimate as leaders our impact upon the culture. But we like to blame, we shift, we say people are this way, or this generation is that way. Again, it comes from the top, right? So we need to see more transparency, self-awareness, and humility in the new leaders of coffee and cafes. We need people to be aggressively curious about curating and reforming their approaches to serving the people that serve them. They truly are helping you make your dreams come true. And it's so noble, it's so important, because it's not only that, but it's also the realization of an entire supply chain in every cup. And that sounds trite, many people talk about it, but it is incredibly true, okay? So let the weight of that shake you from the stupor of stagnation and say, yes, it starts with me. We need to be more transparent, self-aware, humble. And I am a servant leader, and my role is to, with joy, coach, with joy, affirm, resource, clarify, work alongside of, and use my privileged position as somebody who is creating this thing and has power in the business to care for the people, caring for the place and the people. And that is going to make such a huge difference. Yeah, you know what? Sometimes you're going to have hard conversations. Sometimes you're going to be seen as the bad guy. You know what I mean? And that's okay. As long as you can look back and truly say to yourself with honesty, conviction, that you have done your due diligence in the way that you are pursuing responsible leadership in the coffee shop, sometimes things just need to be done. So this is not a call for you to just be kumbaya all the time. Sometimes, again, hard conversations need to happen. You might need to let some people go. You have to hold people accountable. That doesn't mean that you have to be a hard person in order to have a hard conversation. And so if we see ourselves as facilitators of staff's success, and not only that we're out for our own success, then we're going to get better results. We have to be strong, caring, hands-on. We have to be vulnerable and ever improving. Like I like to say, higher degrees of imperfection. And I want this predominantly to be an experience of excitement. Hey, everybody, this is where we're going. We're going there together. This is my role. This is your role. And I'm so excited because we are going to learn a lot about each other and about this business that is going to show us a lot of stuff. And if we just come with this charitable curiosity and a dedication to improvement, it's really going to create a dynamic coffee shop and a solid, successful coffee shop more often than not. So there's a lot here in this conversation today. I really hope that you are getting some value or got some value from what we've talked about. I would love to hear from you what you found most valuable. It just takes a minute to shoot a direct message to Instagram at Keys to the Shop. Let me know what resonated with you a lot here. You can email chris@keystotheshop.com also to do that. And if you are interested in Keys to the Shop consulting and coaching, that's also where you can reach out, chris@keystotheshop.com. Now, I talk about things like this at Coffee Fest. I'm always there at all the shows. I'm a head judge for latte art, but I'm also a lecturer and a workshop facilitator around leadership and systems, culture, that kind of thing in coffee shops. Coffee Fest, if you're not aware, has been doing this kind of thing for 30 years. They're a trade show over the past 30 years that also has been an epicenter for resourcing and equipping coffee retailers with knowledge and tools and insights to be successful. So it's not just the trade show where you get to interact with vendors of great products for your coffee shop, but how you can apply those things well, that's also part of the equation. Go to coffeefest.com to learn more about upcoming shows. The last one of this year is in Orlando in November 10th and 11th, I believe. And you can use the code KEYS, KEYS, to get 50% off your registration when you do general admission. And that will be really helpful when you sign yourself and your team up. So if you're going to be going, let me know. I would love to say hello. Just try to find me out there. I'll have a booth. I'll be flitting around here and there. So I have a booth, and sometimes I'm not at my booth, and sometimes I am, but I'm trying to be more present. But I'm very busy during Coffee Fest, and it's super energizing and so great. I hope to see you there. Again, check them out over at coffeefest.com. And with that, that is the end of our show, everybody. I really appreciate you tuning in to this episode. Hopefully it was very valuable for you. I appreciate you listening. Don't forget to subscribe, share these episodes, and as always, I hope that this episode has truly given you keys to the shop.